Hello my beautiful friends, it's Amanda here, and today we are kicking off my best of the year series. There are 3 more videos to follow, but this is my top 10 ColourPop palettes of the year video. My finale of my best of the year series is always the best palettes of the year. So you will see some overlap between the palettes that I show in today's video and the ones that appear at the very end of the best of 2022 series. But if you spend any amount of time on this channel, then it is no surprise to anyone. I really love ColourPop. I review a lot of ColourPop. I try to review pretty much every single collection that they come out with, which is in itself a Herculean feat. But the result of that is a lot of their products end up becoming my favorites. They're the things I use a lot and they become my staples. I feel like this year it wasn't that difficult to pick my top 10. I agonized over it a lot more last year, and to be completely honest with you, there were a lot more palettes that I was really hooked on last year than this year. That's not to say that they had a bunch of bad releases this year. It was just some things just didn't really fit my style. My tastes have definitely evolved a lot this year. My top 10 favorite ColourPop palettes are really going to reflect that. The majority of their releases this year as far as palettes were just okay for me. So certainly none of my favorites lists should be taken as gospel. These are really just my preferences, what I enjoyed, what I felt excited by. So obviously if I love something you dislike or you love something that I didn't mention, it's just down to a difference in taste, a difference in style. So if I don't love something that is your favorite, I'm still happy that you get to enjoy it. These are just my favorite things. This is the part of the video where I should have said, hey, every single one of these palettes that I'm talking about has swatches and review videos, and most of them have tutorials, and I'm going to link them all below so that you can get more information about each one of these palettes. But I was so excited that I just went straight into telling you my list. So make sure you check down in the description box. I will link each and every one of my swatch and review videos in case you want to just hear more in-depth opinions about these. And I pretty much did tons of comparisons for all of these palettes as well. So check that out. And also, if you are going to buy any of these palettes from the ColourPop site or anything else, you can always use my affiliate code. It will save you 10% on most things on the ColourPop site. Don't forget to save a little extra moolah that way. And thank you to everybody who continues to use my affiliate links or my affiliate codes. I really appreciate it. It makes a big difference for me, and it helps me continue to make content on this channel. And sorry, I was not thinking about the whole business side of this video. I was just so excited to share the list. So make sure you check out the other videos. Make sure you use my affiliate code. And also thanks for letting me do this weird little interjection because of who I am as a person. Okay, back to my face now. Bye-bye now. So let's start with number 10 and work our way up to number 1. And my number 10 spot, I'm actually pulling in a release from the very end of 2021. So technically this release is not from this year, but it just didn't get a fair shake in last year's video. I really enjoy this release. So I'm talking about the little jewel tone quads from the end of the year last year, particularly Got Agate Set on Sapphire and an Emerald Away. I'm kind of double cheating with this one because technically this is 3 palettes and technically these are from 2021, but I just really enjoyed these, and I feel like if this moment passes us by, they won't really get their time to shine. In all honesty, I do think that these should rank a little bit higher in my favorites. I think these should probably be at around number 8 or so, but I felt more justified sneaking these in at number 10 since I am double cheating. Also, I don't love this packaging. This is my least favorite packaging from ColourPop, but the shadow quality in here is amazing. I love that these are half matte, half shimmer. I love that they're jewel tones. I love that they don't have any pressed glitter. And I really like using these three together. So I sort of count this as one palette. I think these shades together would actually make a really, really good palette. In the number 9 spot is a palette from their recent holiday vault. This is the Sweet Vibes palette. It came from the Manifest This palette vault that they just dropped for the holiday season. And this was my favorite of the vault, and I just really like this color story. There's a striking amount of blue in the palettes that I enjoyed this year. Blue and cool tones. I don't know what's happening, but I think this is such an interesting color story. This is a really approachable way to present blue and purple. I just felt like this was a really unique color story for ColourPop. In theory, I'm not a big blue girl. My favorites will beg to differ, but I think this is special, it's fun, and it has the beloved blurple blue purple that we're all really wanting from ColourPop. In the number 8 spot, I have a more neutral heavy palette than we've seen so far in this ranking. This is the So Fly palette. These initially launched at Ulta, but this is now available on the ColourPop site, at least as of the time I'm filming this. This doesn't look like much at first glance. This is one that I've gravitated towards and gone back to more than I ever anticipated. After I reviewed these, I thought this would be one of those little collections that I didn't really think much about, but I absolutely love this color, this bluish green, peacock green type of color here. And I think these two green shades honestly work so beautifully with these neutrals. There's a surprising range in here. I like that there's a good amount of depth. That's something that I really look for, especially in a smaller palette, because it lends so much versatility, not just to give us different looks, but to work across a lot of different skin tones and a lot of different styles. Even I kind of underrated it at the time, but this ended up being such a cute little release and one that surprised me throughout the year. In spot number 7, another kind of surprise palette for me. This is the holiday palette in collaboration with the Muppets, and I didn't really have the nostalgic pull towards this collaboration that I often do. But what really sold me here is the color story. I like the arrangement. I like the balance of colors and neutral. I do wish that we had a little bit more variety up here in this top row. Overall, I found this palette to be exciting. I think it fit the theme really well. It's not too overworked and it's not too neutral. It just has a really nice balance and super fun to play with. Again, we have more blue showing up in my favorite palettes. I don't know what the universe is trying to tell me, but maybe I'll love blue in 2023. And I also see this being a great first step into something more colorful for those who maybe have stuck more to the neutral side. I think this could be a fun way to experiment with some really bold colors. I know I've had fun playing with it. So that's the Muppets palette in spot number 7. My number 6 palette in my ranking, another collaboration. This one does tug on my heartstrings a little bit. And by a little bit, I mean a lot, because I unapologetically love Hocus Pocus. I liked the second movie. I didn't agree with a lot of the hate for the second movie. Everybody's allowed to have their opinions about movies, makeup, all that stuff. I liked it. I like this palette a lot. I think this makes perfect sense as a Hocus Pocus palette. It makes perfect sense as a Halloween palette. I thought this collection as a whole was really beautiful. I very much enjoy the total package here. The packaging is really cool. Sometimes a reflective background like this can kind of take away from the color story, and I don't think that's the case here at all. I do think this was just executed really well. I love a green, I love a purple. Those are my favorite color eyeshadows to wear. It just makes sense. It flowed well. It fits the theme. Cute packaging, good performance. Overall, just a really well done collaboration and one that I enjoy beyond Halloween. We're at the halfway point now. In 5th place, I have the Not a Box of Chocolates palette. I think there's so much more than meets the eye for this palette. Yes, it's neutrals, it's brown neutrals. Certainly ColourPop has done plenty of brown neutrals. Something about this one though is just special to me. I love the packaging. I love the size of this palette. This in between mid-size palette bigger than a 9 pan. It's giving a lot more than something like Nude Mood or Wild Child, but it's a lot more compact and approachable than something like the Bare Necessities, which is their mega palette. This is just such a nice medium size. It's friendly for storage, it's friendly for travel. The little imprints on this palette that make it look like little chocolates is so cute, such a cute detail. I do find that sometimes their very neutral palettes tend to be heavy on the super light shades, which is fine if that's what you're looking for, and sometimes that's what I'm looking for. But I like that this has a lot more richness. This can give a greater variety of more romantic, smoky, sultry looks. And I also think that means that this has a lot more versatility across skin tones. Overall, I just think this is really cute, such a great little staple palette. And if you want a good solid neutral palette, but you think that the Bare Necessities is just too big, too overwhelming, this is a beautiful alternative, and the performance of these shadows is absolutely top notch. Some of their palettes were kind of hit and miss for me this year, and this was definitely a hit. Every single shadow in here is just buttery and really, 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 really good. In my number 4 spot, I have a palette that I think is going to be pretty popular among favorites this year, and that's the Star Wars palette. I know that people love Star Wars. My husband and my son love Star Wars. They watch the movies, they watch The Mandalorian, they are really into it. I have just never really been into it. I've seen them, I know the gist of it, it's just not something that I've really connected with as a franchise. But look, I understand the draw. I totally get it. I get why it's popular. It's just not really my thing. But this palette though is my thing. I told you there's more blue in here. I don't know. I think this is just so well curated. Everything from the packaging design. I love this kind of vintage movie poster look. The outer space, the iridescence, the way that these tie-dye shadows look very planetary. Everything about this just is so appealing. It fits the theme so well. It doesn't feel slapped together. It feels very intentional. You could do so many looks with this, from bold and colorful to really simple and neutral. You could do a little quick 2 shadow, just throw something on. You could do a super smoky, deep, extra lashes liner. You could do everything in between. I think this palette has great versatility. It's interesting without being unapproachable, and that's something that I really look for in a palette, because when I'm reviewing stuff, I don't just think about whether or not I like it. I think about how could this be useful for my mom, who's also a consumer of makeup, or my sister, who's really picky and only buys 1 palette a year. You know, there's so many other perspectives to approach makeup from, other than somebody like me who has a billion palettes and will wear anything and not care if it looks good or not. This can appeal to everybody on that spectrum, and I think that's really special. So I like this palette a lot. Initially, I just felt sort of fine towards it, but the more the year went on, the more I grew to appreciate this. And I do think a lot of other palettes released from ColourPop and other brands just kind of paled in comparison to this one. Okay, we're into the top 3 now, and I think that I have a very unexpected top 3. I didn't expect it. I don't know if you're gonna expect it. Maybe you've noticed this evolution of mine more than I have, because I'm just in the thick of it all the time. So let me just cut to the chase. In 3rd place for me is this Shell Shocked palette. I believe this is no longer available. This was part of their little Opal collection that they released this summer, and I think that was one of their best collections of the year, hence why I think this is one of their best palettes of the year. I love a smaller palette like this, not just because it's easy to store, it's easy to travel with, but it makes me feel creative in a way, because it forces me to imagine different shadow placements, different color combinations in a way that a big mega palette doesn't really push me to do. There's super shocks in here. We have a little kind of pinky lilac. We have duochromes. We have some very basic little matte shades. We have some pops of color. I can't believe that a very pastel forward, very blue forward palette has ranked so high for me. But I have enjoyed this little palette so much. You can't see, but on the lower shelves down here, I just have bins where I keep makeup that I want to reach for. And this stayed in one of those little bins since the summertime. She's cute, she's colorful, and she just makes me happy every time I use her. So a very surprising favorite in a year of surprising favorites for me, really. My choice for second place is maybe a bold choice because this is a really recent release. Just for context, I'm filming this video right after the Pretty Please palette came out. So anything that releases after the Pretty Please collection is not gonna be able to be in this video. But if anything really good comes out for the end of this year, then I'll just push it over to next year's favorites. However, this one, I knew that it was gonna be on this list. I didn't realize it was gonna be so high on this list, but you probably already know. It's the Aurora Struck palette. This has to be one of the best mega palettes overall, and you know, I ride for my mega palettes, okay? This palette is what I'm wearing on my eyes today. It's what I've been wearing on my eyes pretty much every day since I got it. And it is full of cool tones and blues, and I don't know who I am anymore, but I love this palette. I'm wearing a mixture of these two on the crease area, then these two on the lid, this Arctic Fox shade on the inner part of the lid, this very, very tiny dab on the inner corners, and then I deepened the very outer part with this shade right here. This palette is so special. It's so unlike anything else that they've released. Sure, when I did my comparisons, I had to cobble together like 10 different palettes to get a decent comparison. So it's not like these are brand new colors that were just invented this week from ColourPop, but this whole package, the Northern Lights packaging, the array of cool tones that are not just grays, the way that they made me want to wear pastels and want to wear blues, I don't know what they did to me this year. This just really took me by surprise, not just because I love it so much and it's not my usual style, but because their mega palettes haven't really had a grip on me since the It's a Mood palette. And even It's a Mood didn't rank this high in last year's top 10. Although, you know, there were some really, really good palettes last year. But this is just beautiful, shockingly good, surprising, lovely, useful, inspiring, and I just really like it. You probably gathered that because of how high I ranked it. And speaking of being surprised, can you even guess what my top palette is gonna be? Because if you told me when this palette came out that this was gonna be my #1 ColourPop palette for the year, I would have been like, no, that doesn't make any sense. But here we are. I will try my best not to draw it out any further. My #1 ColourPop palette for the year is the Troublemaker palette. I am surprised that I'm saying that because this is a very cool toned palette and it's a very neutral palette. Typically, those are two things that I'm not incredibly excited by. I'm sure you can tell from my other picks that I do tend to be more interested in something that's at least somewhat colorful. And this does have a little bit of color going on. We have this pink, we have a little bit of purple, but this palette, it's just the performance is so spot on for me. Every single eye look that I do with this palette looks so good, so effortless. I can easily do something super quick, simple, you know, 1 or 2 shadows on the lid, don't even think about it. But I find that this palette really shines with something that's a little bit more sultry, a little bit more kind of smoky and edgy. And I've really been enjoying eye looks that have more depth. So this has also just been such a staple for me because I've been pulling this in anytime that I need more depth. So for example, this Shell Shocked palette, it's just not quite deep enough for me, but these two together boom, I'm getting my pop of color here, but I have some beautiful mattes and shimmers to be the supporting cast without being your typical neutral, orangey brown, blah, blah, blah. This has just been such a workhorse palette for me this year. Another reason why this is ranking at the very top of the pile for me is the formulas in here are so perfect. Every single shadow is a hit. Every single shadow is a hit. And there have been quite a few palettes where at least a few of them were like, meh, you know, a little dusty, looking a little tired. I like a more opaque shadow that's still easy to layer and blend, and this just hits the nail on the head. Also, I have to say, this little Super Shock in here, I typically ignore the Super Shock shadow in a palette like this because they just tend to be these little kind of meh, the little white sparkly topper. Not this one. This actually has some meat to its bones. You can tell that's why it's so messed up, because I've used it so much. This actually has some body to it, and it's not just a little sparkly whisper of a topper. Mattes and shimmers alike are so high performing. This silver shade is stunning. I barely touched it, and it is so bright, so reflective. If you like the Super Shock shadow in Liberty, which was sold out / discontinued for a while and then came back in the vault, but I don't think it's sold separately. Anyway, if you like that silver, this, whew, ooh, all right. This has just been such a surprising, reliable, high quality, beautiful palette. It's great on its own. It's great as a companion. It's just all around great. I don't even really love the packaging that much. It's just the shadows, the formula. It's a really good surprise. And it's my #1 palette. Believe it or not, that's it. That is my list of my top 10 favorite ColourPop palettes this year. I'm not sure if I can't believe it because of what topped the list, or I can't believe it because this year's already over. Maybe it's a mixture of both. Make sure you stay tuned for more best of the year videos coming very soon. I definitely want to hear about your ColourPop favorites and your just across the board favorites. Even if they weren't released this year, I always love to hear what you think about things too, so make sure you leave all your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye! The end of the year videos are always a lot because once I actually film it, then it's over. But literally up until the time that I sit down here, I rewrite my best of the year lists many times. I start in like September and I just revise them. I go back over my reviews. I go through my collection. I go through my Instagram. I do get a little fixated, but it's just because I don't want to pick the wrong thing. I have this feeling that I'm going to forget about something, and let me tell you, rarely do I add something to the list that didn't pop up on the immediate brainstorm list that I make months ago. Rarely. You'd think after years of doing this I would learn from that and I would just go with the first list, but alas. I'm not too matchy with my sweater, am I? Not that it matters. Guess I can wear whatever I want. Okay. But if my dog cannot be quiet. She's very perturbed by the neighbors getting a new roof. She does not like the roofers being over there at all. She doesn't like that. She's like, hey, you're not supposed to walk around on house. Stop it. Some things just, apologies if that is really cheating, but it's my video, so I get to cheat if I want to. Very similar to the nail polish that I'm wearing today, and we love a matching nail moment. Huh? Ma'am, can you speak up? I forgot I was gonna... Words. This is just such a nice, easily digestible size. Get it? Because it's chocolates. Alright, sorry. This combo right here, it's the Who Am I starter pack. Ooh, hold on, my phone's going. I'm trying to wipe this off a little bit because the inside of my palette is a little bit wrecked, a little bit more wrecked than the others. Oh, it doesn't look too bad on camera. Okay, like squish that back down. Okay. I forget where I was because my phone rang. All these cool tones. What are you doing, troublemaker? I mean, look at that. I just always grabbed this, even if I just needed like a brown. I was like, oh, I'll just grab this one because I like this sort of pinky brown tone. I don't know. something about this just really, really captured me. I don't hate the packaging, I just don't love it. It just doesn't really do anything for me. I understand it. It's sort of like, ooh, I'm a rebel, troublemaker, safety pins, I don't know. I get it because that was me, but like 22 years ago. But I like the colors. That's what it's all about. It's just the shadows. This green goddess. This gray and green cool tone gal that I am. All right, that's it. That is it. I can't believe it, but I better believe it because that's it. Wow, that was a stretch. Anyway, I'm gonna go clean up my workspace. I got a lot of stuff out here. I got a lot of irons in the fire right now. I got a lot of stuff to edit, and I'm excited about all of it. And I'm excited that you're here. I'm so happy that you're here. You wanna know why? Because I love your face. All right, I will see ya in the next one, which will probably be real soon because I'm posting tons of extra videos this month. So I'll be there, and I hope you'll be there because I love your face. Okay, bye.